What is up? Welcome back to another Foxy Games UK news video. So yeah, just some brief video game news today. Two news stories concerning Microsoft CEO, that's the top head honcho at Microsoft, and commitment to PlayStation. Surprisingly, following recent reports that Microsoft would wind down its games on PlayStation following backlash from Xbox fans, and which I thought was a nothing burger. I wasn't even going to cover that story because since when has Microsoft ever cared about what its fans wanted? But yeah, so let's get into our first news story. If you like this type of thing, like, subscribe, hit notification, and all that good stuff. So our first news story, courtesy of WCCFtech.com, initially reported that Xbox Series X and S to PlayStation 5 ports have been slowed down by the Indiana Jones and Great Circle's port reception, meaning that Xbox gamers were none too happy. Halo and Gears continue to be red lines. Interesting. So yeah, Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S to PlayStation 5 ports have reportedly been slowed down following the poor reception of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle's quick PlayStation 5 port, according to rumors circulating online. Where else do they circulate? Now, speaking on XSS ones, who proved to be somewhat reliable in the past, commented on the port, saying that according to the latest information in their possession, which probably means not very much information at all, the ports have not been cancelled but only have been slowed down. This was caused by the bad reception of the quick Indiana Jones and Great Circle to PS5 port, which is coming just a few months after the game's debut on Xbox Series X, S and PC in December. Now, in addition, replying to an earlier rumour that really started circulating online earlier in the week, the Halo and Gears of War series continue to be red lines that Microsoft is not going to cross at the moment, so we shouldn't expect to see them on PlayStation anytime soon. Though we should interject that there was much speculation when Microsoft revealed it would be changing from its Slipspace engine to Unreal Engine 5 for future Halo projects, leading people to believe that that's Microsoft gearing up to go third party with Halo, because the obviously Slipspace engine would be a monster to port over to PlayStation 5, whereas Unreal Engine 5 is pretty much universal tech. So the announcement of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle launching on PS5 only a few months after its release on Xbox Series X, S and S and PC during this year's Gamescom opening night live was definitely a surprise to many, as every Microsoft game released on Sony's console to date, such as Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded, Sea of Thieves, wasn't exactly a new release. Still, as Microsoft's strategy seems to be changing quite a lot over the past few years following the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, the PlayStation 5 release of some of its biggest games has only become a matter of not if, but when. So yeah, according to this WCCF Tech rumor report, whatever you want to call it, the games weren't really going to be flying over to PlayStation anytime soon. Microsoft's going to slow down the whole thing. They don't want to upset their fans, but unfortunately that bubble has now been burst, because in an annual letter from Satya Nadella to shareholders, and Satya Nadella, might I add, is the chairman and CEO at Microsoft, higher than Phil Spencer. He's the head. He's where the buck stops at Microsoft in totality. So this was published on October 24th, yes, just yesterday, when Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, said, and I quote, "We are bringing great games to more people on more devices with our acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, which closed October 2023. We've added hundreds of millions of players to our ecosystem. We now have 20 franchises that have generated over $1 billion in lifetime revenue, from Candy Crush, Diablo and Halo to Warcraft, Elder Scrolls and Gears of War. And with Xbox Cloud Gaming, we continue to innovate to other players more ways to experience the games they love, where, when and how they want. Finally, we brought 4 of our fan favorite titles to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time, as we continue to extend our content to new platforms." There you go. The Microsoft CEO just straight up reaffirmed commitment to releasing games multi-platform. Microsoft, whether you like it or not, are going third party. It's only a matter of time before games are day and date. Everything up to this point has really been Microsoft testing the waters. They tested the waters with those 4 initial games, the Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded, and others. And they got a little backlash, but it wasn't severe. So they thought, hold on a minute, I think we can handle this. Let's release one of the biggest film movie adaptations to video game franchises there ever was, 80s classic Indiana Jones. Let's just go ahead and announce that for PS5 during one of our biggest announcements at, Gamescom 2024. Because, backlash is backlash. Really, it's not really backlash. Most people couldn't care. It's a bunch of fanboys who, let's be honest, must be completely devoid within their lives, that they need something, they need a bragging right, they need something to hold over to make themselves feel better about whatever. And then on top of that, Microsoft said it was all about Game Pass. Game Pass, Game Pass, Play Anywhere, Game Pass. But arguably, its biggest release for the next few years is going to undoubtedly be Call of Duty Black Ops 6. And rarely anywhere in the marketing is there anything about Game Pass. I've seen more promotion on the PlayStation side of it. Everywhere where you see, commercial Call of Duty anything, it's barely Game Pass mentioned. I don't know why, but Microsoft aren't really pushing the whole Game Pass thing with the Black Ops 6 release, one of its biggest games. And yeah, where is the line going to be drawn? I mean, in terms of games, which games and when? Microsoft, according to the wording of the letter, the open letter to shareholders, it doesn't seem like Microsoft are keeping anything off the table. Like, multiple games can come to PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. I assume Nintendo Switch 2, Fable, your Forza Horizons, pretty much anything, Halo, Gears, whatever. And it is interesting that some of the trailers don't have any platforms mentioned, like Gears E-Day. There's no mention of which consoles it's coming out on. Blade, no mention of which consoles it's coming out on. That's interesting to me. It's really interesting, isn't it? Really interesting. So quick to feed into the whole slow down ports to PlayStation narrative, only for a day later, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, in charge of everything, comes out and says, nope, we're making a commitment to other platforms, and that includes PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't. It's just insane. So there you have it. Interesting stuff. But yeah, it's not all bad news though. Xbox Series X is now outselling Series S in the US. Astrobot debuts in second in September charts, and the lifetime sales for the Xbox Series X has finally surpassed Series S, and everything, it seems, fine and dandy. Yes, you'll be quite surprised that Microsoft has indeed hit the 30 million milestone according to recent sales metrics. Okay, courtesy of gamersocialclub.ca. Not come across this site before, however, I'm indiscriminate. So yeah, according to this, all links available in the description, by the way. So we got a double dip on sales data this month from Circana, a company that tracks sales in the US, and they recently gave us August data. And today they dropped the most recent September data, which saw a lot of interesting results. Overall, the industry saw a 6% decline year over year compared to last September, mostly due to the 44% drop in hardware sales. But new software rules today, as is always the case around this time of the year. The September chart is littered with new game releases. 7 of the top 20 were September releases, highlighted by Astrobot in second, Legend of Zelda's Echoes of Wisdom in fourth, and Space Marine 2 at the 18th. It should be noted that both Zelda and Space Marine 2 data is physical sales only, as Nintendo and Focus Entertainment do not release digital sales information. So the results for Astro Bot in particular is likely seen as a big success for PlayStation, having really not been one of their usual big budget games. It isn't really likely, or wasn't likely expected to do well, as typical PlayStation exclusives typically do. So its success is good to see, with it being a critical darling, with many critics giving it a resounding 10. Yes, it probably will continue to do well and be one of those evergreen sellers as more and more migrate to PlayStation and it PS5 Pro, that is. Now on the flip side, at first glance, this result may seem disappointed for Space Marine 2. However, we know the game is doing quite well, having recently announced 4.5 million players. It simply tells us the vast majority of sales were digital. But yeah, it's a good thing that Xbox now is really surpassing the weaker Xbox Series S, a console that I've not really been a great fan of, the Xbox Series S, to be quite frank with you. But the hardware market continues to come crashing down, according to GamerSocialClub.ca. Yes, alarmist, with the earlier mentioned 44% decline year over year. But PlayStation 5 once again topped the charts, with Xbox Series X and S finishing second. But perhaps the most interesting takeaway from all this is the digital console sales. For the first time ever, Xbox Series X is now in more households than the cheaper digital-only Series S in the US, according to Sakana, with a 51-49 split. Supply for the Series X during the first couple of years of its existence were limited, but it is nonetheless interesting that the Xbox has now just surpassed the Series S in lifetime sales to date. Now on the PlayStation side of things, a digital only version of the PlayStation 5 amounts to 18% of total sales of the overall console share, meaning PS5 disc version is the bulk seller. Perhaps more interesting though is that the number is growing, with September seeing a 40% of all PlayStation 5 sold being the digital only consoles. What this all means for the industry going forward will be fascinating to watch as things shift from physical ownership to digital. As a physical game collector, I certainly hope we don't see the day where digital is the only option. I doubt that. The prices will probably go up, but I doubt it will only be digital. You can still buy compact discs. Now we'll also, and vinyl I might add, but we'll also see what kind of impact the new PlayStation 5 Pro will have on the falling hardware market. If it spikes up, demand for PlayStation, it might even sell more PS5s, because when people say, oh look, that one's really expensive, let me opt for the cheaper one, that could spur on regular PS5 vanilla sales as well as adding a few million this holiday with PS5 Pro when it releases in November 7. So interesting stuff there. Very interesting indeed. Like, subscribe, hit notification, because that brings us to the end of this video. Do make your opinions clear in the video comments, and enjoy the weekend. Until next time, play games, not corporations.